Good evening. My name is Michelle Serenian, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer at The Gathering Place. Tonight, we conclude our program series in recognition of Minority Health Month in partnership with Taussig Cancer Center and the Office of Minority Health. Throughout the series, experts in healthcare provided vital information around prostate cancer, caregiver support, and the role nutrition plays in healthcare outcomes. The series concludes tonight with an important conversation on the unique challenges communities of color face when caring for aging loved ones diagnosed with cancer. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. The Gathering Place is a cancer support center here in Northeast Ohio offering free programs and services to individuals and families coping with cancer. Opened over 20 years ago, we have since served over 47,000 participants. Throughout the Minority Health series, it has been our goal to provide health education and resources to help impact change. Studies show how minority populations are disproportionately vulnerable to premature death and high incidence of chronic illness. That said, it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for this evening. First, Connie Hill-Johnson, owner and managing director of Visiting Angels Living Assistance Services. I've known Connie for a long time, and I'm so grateful that she is on the panel today. Connie has spent over 16 years helping seniors remain independent and safe in their home environment. She's passionate about helping adult caregivers manage the many challenges that come with the aging process and for caring for those that have aged. Following the presentation, Connie will be joined by a few guests for a panel discussion moderated by Simone Swanson, Director of Community Outreach for The Gathering Place. Panelists include Susan Marinac, Program Director at The Gathering Place, and Heidi Barham, Spiritual Care Coordinator at Hospice the Western Reserve. And Heidi, it's great to see you again as well. Thank you for joining us. Before we start the presentation, I would like to take a moment to share some housekeeping rules. The first portion of tonight's program will be recorded. We will end recording after the panel discussion. Following the panel discussion, we will open for questions. Please feel free to place your questions in the chat box throughout the presentation. Thank you for joining us throughout the Minority Health Month series. We hope the information tonight is helpful and encouraging to you and your loved ones on their cancer journey. Always remember, the Gathering Place is here to assist. Now, I'd like to please welcome Connie.
Good evening, everyone. Michelle, thank you so much for the opportunity to share and to serve and to give a little bit of information and knowledge out of my many years of experience. I am thrilled to be here. I have partnered with The Gathering Place before. Am so appreciative of the services that are offered to the community. And I have a family member, a blood relative, an aunt, who recently took a breast cancer journey and utilized the services of The Gathering Place. So professionally and personally, I know of the great work that this organization provides and want to do my part in getting the message out, particularly to communities of color, particularly African Americans, about the services. So when I was asked by Simone to join you all, I jumped at the opportunity to share a bit about being a caregiver. And again, I've journeyed this personally, but now we're almost, Michelle, at almost 19 years of service with Visiting Angels. So again, happy to be here. So one of the big questions, or one of the big things that I run into a lot, is how do I even begin to have the discussion with my parents or my loved ones about the aging process when chronic disease might hit or when a crisis might occur, and whether it's cancer or some other type of disease. Many adult children today are finding themselves entering the caregiving arena and not knowing how to navigate that. So I just want to take a few moments and share a few pointers on how you even have that conversation with your parents or your loved ones, recognizing that as they get older, the probability does increase that a health-related problem could come up, and you're going to find yourselves in the midst of it, not knowing how to navigate those waters. So there are a few things that I just want to go over some statistics first, particularly since this is Minority Health Month. And many of the listeners on right now are people of color. So here are just some data. African-American caregivers are on average 47, a little bit over 47 and a half years old on average. Many times they are unmarried. There are more single African-American family caregivers than all other racial or ethnic groups. And typically what we see is a lower overall household income for those African-American primary caregivers. And that's as compared to the Caucasian or the white population or Asian caregivers. Another point that I want to lift here is that most African-American caregivers are typically caring for a parent, a spouse, or a grandparent who is on average about 65 years old. And they usually have some type of long-term physical condition. Most of us know a lot about chronic disease these days. And we've read the information and heard even recently in the midst of this COVID environment with the disproportionate number of African Americans who have been impacted by the virus. One of the main reasons being the large numbers of comorbidities that many African Americans are holding on. And that's a conversation for another day about why that's the case. But here again, when adult children are finding themselves caregiving, they're taking care of a mom or a dad who has some other chronic illnesses or multiple chronic illnesses in this caregiving journey. About half the time, the caregiver is living with their aging loved one. So in the same home, we see that so much more than we see with non-Hispanic whites under the same roof, holding down the primary caregiving responsibilities. Move to the next slide. So here's some numbers where you see the high burden of caregiving by racial ethnic groups. African Americans spend about 30 hours a week caregiving. That's about 57% of their time. Hispanics or non-whites or non-African Americans spend about 45% of their time. And whites spend about 33% of their time, or 20 hours a week. Now, again, a lot of that is related to the fact that many caregivers are living in the homes with their aging loved ones. So quite naturally, that percentage would go up in terms of the amount of time that they're spending caregiving. So your question is, you know, how do I even approach this? And I see this every day, and I think I've shared with some of the folks at the Gathering Place and other organizations that having the conversation in Black families can sometimes be daunting and challenging. Many times it is how we were raised, certain things you don't talk to about with your elders, but the conversation still has to be had. And what I have seen in many instances is the crisis will hit, a diagnosis will be given, a medical emergency will occur, and the adult children are in no way prepared to manage it, to answer the questions from physicians, or to even manage the affairs of their parents. So how do you broach it? You know, and I always say to families and adult children, do it when things are well. Don't try to have the conversation when the diagnosis comes, when you get the call from your mom or your dad that the doctor has said they found a lump, or they have cancer or some other life-threatening disease. So I did a podcast last year with a young lady, and she decided, or rather I suggested, that the best time to air this podcast was right before Thanksgiving. I said, because that's when all the kids come home. Everyone comes home at Thanksgiving. They sit around the table, they eat too much, they lay around, they watch football. And that's the best time, I think, to have that conversation. So start off with not saying, Mom and Dad, this is what I think you need. Start off with saying, you know, I love you. And I'd really like to ask you, what do you want as you age? What are your wishes? I don't know, and I want to honor them. And I don't want to find myself in a position having to make some decisions on your behalf that could totally be contrary to what you are, what your desires are. So start right there and listen more than talk. Even though you might think you know what's best, this is an opportunity to really be quiet and listen to what your parents desire. Even if in the back of your head, you're thinking that is not going to happen, you still need to listen to what they want before you respond. So that's the first step, is schedule some time. Don't make it so formal that they clam up, but just sit down at the table and say, I love you, and I really want to be here as you get older. What are your wishes? So that's the first step. The second one I would always say is be their partner, not their parent. Full stop. It is so easy for us as we get older and our parents age to reverse the roles. And the roles do get reversed depending on what's going on. But we still need to recognize that they're the parent and we are the adult child. And so when we talk about role reversal, we're talking about being put in that position to have to make some key decisions to support your parents in the aging process. I recall so greatly hearing my husband talk to his parents as they were aging, and they're gone now. But I remember him saying clearly to them, you are always going to be wiser than me because you're parents. You're always going to be wiser. But in this particular instance, I want to be able to give you some sound counsel on what I think is best for you as you get older. So remember that you're not the parent, never will be the parent, but you want to be their partner. Offer some options and not advice. Don't tell them what you think is best. Don't tell them what they should do, but lay out for them a few options. And don't act or think, again, as if you're the parent. And for those of you who are parents, pause for a moment and think about how you might react when your children come to you. And you notice I didn't say if, when they come to you at some point in time and ask you what your wishes are as you get older. So just remember that you want to partner with them as you help them plan for growing older and being prepared if a chronic disease comes to the forefront, and you want to help them navigate through that. Assess their needs. Help them assess their needs and their expectations. Make a list. Make a list of what they need. You'd be surprised how many parents, when they're asked, will tell you, you know what? I think I need to be in a home all on one floor. You know what? I think I need a walk-in shower. You know what? I think I need grab bars in the shower. You know what? I think I need you to go to the doctor with me, because sometimes he or she are using such big words or talking about tests that I don't understand. So ask them what they need. We'd be amazed at how many of our parents are just waiting for us to say, what can we do to help? Because we have a tendency to think that's, I always called my parents mommy and daddy. As old as I got, they were still mommy and daddy. So we always think they're going to be mommy and daddy. And we don't see them really aging and needing us until we're slapped in the face. And so ask them and assess what their needs and expectations are and write that down. And be honest with yourself on what you know they will and won't be okay with. So I knew certain things about my mom and dad. There wasn't a point of even raising it because it was going to be a battle. So most of us know our parents well enough to know what we can suggest and help them navigate that they will be accepting of. And then those things that are going to be a battle. And that's the last thing you want in this process, is to find yourself in a battle with your parent, insisting on something that you know they're not going to be okay with, but yet because you think it's best, you're pushing the envelope. and it's going to cause them to shut down and do the exact opposite of what you really believe in your heart is best for them. So as you're assessing their needs and what they expect and what they desire, weigh the many options. I think so many of us don't know what's out in the community in terms of resources. So do your homework before the crisis hits. One of the things I say to so many families now, it's not if something happens, it's generally when it happens. And when I say crisis, I don't necessarily mean something life-threatening, but as we all age, something is going to occur that's going to indicate to us that we need support, that we need help, that we need outside resources, that we need to tap into other companies and agencies that are the experts in supporting seniors who are choosing to age in place and stay in their community and stay in their home. So weigh all of those options so that as you watch and observe your parents, and as you begin to have that conversation with them about aging, you can lay out some options in front of them and say, well, maybe mom or dad says, I don't want to stay home. I really would like to move to a senior apartment, or we've saved our money and I'm interested in going into assisted living. You won't know until you ask them. So look at all the options that are available to your parents while considering their financial state before you have this discussion. And then again, have that conversation. Do they want to stay in their home? How long do they want to stay in their home? Is it safe for them to stay in their home? I know years ago when, and I'm not there yet, but I'm headed in that direction of aging. I said to my husband when we were looking for homes, I said, and that's primarily because I'm in this business, I didn't want to look for homes that didn't have a master on the first floor. I didn't. I said, this might be the only house I ever buy in my whole life. And so let's prepare now for not having that challenge of the stairs, getting up the stairs or getting down the stairs. And so I only looked at homes that had a master on the first floor. So those are just some things that you can even begin to think about now as an adult with perhaps small children or kids in their teens and 20s, and you're not even thinking about what it looks like to age. But those are pivotal things that as you navigate this with your parent, you need to kind of turn it inward and say, what else do I need to do to prepare? And if they want to stay home, how do you identify the resources that you can bring into the home? It has been amazing in this journey of visiting angels, the amount of services and equipment that are now in the home that 20 years ago I did not see in the home. So there is so much that can be done in terms of bringing services and equipment and individuals to provide care into a home than was the case 20 years ago. And then be aware. Sometimes when you're at your parents', just be quiet and watch. Just be quiet. Don't talk. Do little things like, I'm going to get a glass of water from the refrigerator and see if there's leftover food in the refrigerator. See if there's food that's molding in the refrigerator. If you can, take a peek in the laundry room. Take a peek in your parents' closet. See if they're wearing the same clothes regularly. See how often they've changed the sheets. Is the linen soiled? If possible, go to the physician with them. I referenced that before. Again, in our community and in the African-American community, sometimes there's a tendency to just not put a lot on our children. We don't want our children to know we're the elders. We will continue to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. But sometimes you might need to insist to mom or dad, I need to go to the doctor with you. I'm concerned. I want to make sure I have the thorough information so that I can better take care of you and be kind of that second set of eyes and ears so you don't forget. So keep those things in mind. If they will allow you to go, go. I'll tell you a personal side note. My mom suffered from memory loss, and we had some concerns, and maybe it's because I'm in the healthcare arena, but I knew who my mom's doctor was. So I called before she went, and I said, my siblings and I have some concerns. And I spoke to the nurse and I said, she's coming in for an appointment tomorrow. These are our concerns. Can you get this message to the doctor? And I remember my mom coming home saying, well, the doctor thinks that I need to go see some geriatric doctor. But I knew enough about how to navigate the system to respect her confidentiality and her privacy, but to at least let the physician know that we had some concerns based on some observations that we had seen. And so figure out how to navigate that. And if you don't know, call and ask. And I'm always here to help you navigate if that's what you need. And then lastly, be honest with yourself. Think about what you can do to support your loved ones financially. The aging process and caregiving is not only costly emotionally, but it can be costly financially. And so recognize that you may be spending a little bit of your money, but be honest about what you can do and what you can't do. And if you have siblings who are partnering with you, recognize that everyone doesn't have the same role. Each sibling may carry a different role, and one's not larger than the other one, but try to define those roles and be honest with yourself about how much you can give to caregiving. And don't beat each other up. There are a lot of long distance caregivers across the country, and everyone can't be in the city where their loved ones are. So try your best to navigate that with your siblings, recognizing that I heard someone say it's amazing how a set of parents can have 6 kids, but 6 kids can't figure out how to take care of their parents. And so give that some thought as you love on your parents and try to better define what your caregiving role should and could be as they age and find themselves faced with a chronic disease, whether it's cancer or anything else. So I hope that was beneficial. And if anyone wants to connect, there's my website, and I'm available for any questions as my panelists and peers join me.
Wow, that was awesome, Connie. Thank you so much. And so I jotted some notes down. And so for folks that are jotting notes down, so I'll just sort of repeat those steps. So again, there were 6 steps that Connie shared. Number 1 was have a meeting. Number 2 is be their partner, not their parent. Number 3 was assess your loved one's needs and expectations. 4, weigh senior options. 3, be aware. And 6, be honest with yourself. So that was an amazing high level sort of overview of this discussion. I know today we are talking about role reversal within communities of color. So this information, we know we have folks that are joining us from all sorts of backgrounds. We have some folks that are caring for potentially their spouse or an aunt, an uncle. So I just want to kind of zoom in on the conversation a bit and really start to sort of get into the specifics around how does role reversal, how is it unique within communities of color? And so before I kick off, I'm just sort of thinking about, Connie, as you kind of talked about the hours that folks spend on caregiving. So 57% of time within the African-American community, so about 30 hours per week, 45% within the Hispanic community, which is about 30 hours a week. But I really want to just kind of look at what does it mean, what are we talking about when we're talking about being a caregiver? So what are some of the things, what's the experience like for someone that is caring for someone with cancer? So I want to introduce our panel. And actually, I didn't even introduce myself. So I am Simone Swanson. I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Community Outreach here at the Gathering Place. I am honored to be here with you all to have this conversation. I see we have an intimate group today, so I'm hopeful that we can have a very rich discussion. The chat box is located at the bottom of your screen. You can feel free to start popping in questions at any point. I'm sure some of those are already starting to come into your mind, so don't be afraid to put your question in the chat box, and after our panel discussion, we'll get to some of those questions. And then so joining Connie is going to be Susan Marinac, who is again our Director of Programs here at the Gathering Place, and Heidi Barham who's a Spiritual Care Coordinator at the Hospice of Western Reserve. So Susan, can you kick us off with talking about the experience of someone going through cancer? What are caregivers seeing?
Sure. Thanks, Simone, and thanks, everyone. Thanks, Connie, for getting us started. Lots of great food for thought and really great points that you made. Caregiving is really a continuum. So caregiving at the gathering place, it could be, it could be somebody that's out of town who's caring for, caring. They love somebody who has cancer, but they're not necessarily doing hands-on like the 30, 40 hour type caregiving that Connie was talking about, all the way up to, folks, and we'll hear from Heidi and whatnot at end of life when it is, when disease is progressing and you are actually doing a lot of hands-on caregiving, changing linens, moving, helping people move, transferring to the chair, all of that kinds of stuff. So really it's a wide spectrum. So how we kind of define it, one of the things I do at the gathering place is I lead a caregiving group. I've been doing that every Monday evening since 2008. I have led a group for caregivers, and I remember my work from hospice and us always trying to get a caregiving group going at hospice. And I don't know if Heidi will comment on this, but saying we can't get a group going because they're caregiving. So it's really hard to get that going. So I'm really, really proud of our little group at the gathering place that has had many iterations, but has been, anywhere from 6 people to, 15 people every Monday night. So I kind of overshot my question. I don't really remember the question, Simone.
No, that was good.
Caregiving.
You talked about it. I just wanted to talk a little bit more for folks to understand and normalize these symptoms that they're saying, because, just as a caregiver, you're sort of, placed into this situation and not knowing what sort of side effects are going to happen sort of after folks are done with treatment or, while they're, after their first appointment. So what are, just kind of talking a little bit more about some of the things, the side effects of cancer that a caregiver sees on a regular basis.
Sure. So what I can say, so when I ask somebody to talk about their caregiving experience, I kind of separate it. So I say, tell me about your cancer person, what's going on with them, give us the updates. That could be anything from, they're in treatment, they're getting radiation, they're getting chemo, they're post-surgery. Some of the issues are everything, a big one is fatigue. They might be feeling nauseous. They don't have a lot of energy. They might be crabby. They might be a little cranky. They're not feeling like themselves. They're in pain. Those are, some of the biggies that the cancer person's experiencing. So I want to talk about that. I want that to be a safe place. I want to engage. I want to know what's going on. And then I always make a big point to transition and say, okay, now let's talk about you as the caregiver. What do you need? Who fills up your cup?
Right.
How are you taking care of yourself? I ask the silly question every week. What one thing did you do for yourself this week? Did you eat ice cream? Did you go for a walk around the block? Did you meet a friend so you could just like vent? Did you? And so, and I ask for like, what's that one good thing that you did for yourself? And it sounds so silly, but it's so important because you are exhausted when you're the caregiver. I've had folks in my caregiver groups that have also been on the other side, have had cancer. They have had a cancer experience. They've gone through it. And this is just anecdotal data, but every single person, I probably had 5 or 6 over the years that have had cancer and now their loved one has cancer. They said they'd rather have the cancer. It's harder being the caregiver.
Wow.
That just, hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does. It does. I appreciate that. And, these conversations are so important, again, because there are things that come up and it is about normalizing that experience for people. And although we're in a virtual space today, imagine us sitting around a large table. As Connie says, these conversations are best to be had at like Sunday dinner or a family gathering. So let's pretend that we're at a table right now. And I want to dig a little bit deeper. So we know that care, the role of a caregiver is is challenging no matter what the background. But I want to dig a little bit deeper, specifically within communities of color. And so Connie, you laid that out very nicely in your opening slides around the statistics within communities of color. And there are four pieces that stood out around the specific differences when we talk about role reversal in communities of color. So around the psychological impact, the navigating the healthcare system, managing symptoms, and then treatment decisions. So Connie, can you weigh in a little bit on one of these? I know we could spend all day talking about all four of these. Again, it's the psychological impact, navigating the healthcare system, managing symptoms, and then the treatment decisions. Can you elaborate on one of those, Connie? And then if you could also share why this is important for healthcare professionals to know.
Well, I think I want to tackle that psychological one,
Okay.
and I'll let the other folks on the panel maybe tackle a few others. And
Okay.
thinking of one I think Heidi will pounce all on, but psychologically, particularly in our community, and when you hear me say our, of course, I'm going to be talking about the Black community. You just are supposed to take care of mom and dad, and you're supposed to know how to do it. And you're supposed to sacrifice and figure it out and roll with it and do it with minimal complaining and call on the neighbors and every cousin you have, and you just do it. And so what I have seen and experienced is before we reach outside of the home, up here, and for those of us who are faith-based, we think of that, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long. So you hear that. It's one of the commandments, honor thy father and thy mother. And so we will selflessly give everything that we have for our mom or our dad, because, and it's not that it's not out of love, but there's also this sense of responsibility and obligation, and they raised me, and this is just what I'm supposed to do. And so by the time, and I'm not saying all, but by the time many caregivers begin to scream uncle, we're emotionally drained. We're ready to collapse. And we sometimes don't know where to turn. So we're going to exhaust everything internally, generally, before we reach externally. And by the time we do, psychologically, many times we could be near a breaking point because we've gone too long without, and we have a tendency to think, and that the importance of caregiving support groups, I can't stress that. When you're in there, nobody knows, nobody's going to understand. I'm the only one experiencing this. And sometimes there's some self-pity. So all of that is playing when, and it doesn't matter if you're a high school graduate or if you're a PhD. I have seen it across the board. I talked to an RN today taking care of her mother, and she's like, I'm a nurse and I can't seem to figure out how to identify support for me in taking care of my mom. So that cultural way we were raised and how we view our elders, and in many homes, grandma and mom and 3 generations might be in a home, and it's just what you do.
It's just what you
pull
do.
the straw, you got to do it.
Yeah, it's just what you do. So can you share a little bit more, Connie, on why is this important for healthcare professionals to understand psychologically for communities of color? It's a different experience.
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because as a provider myself, and I'm not a clinical provider, but I'm in that healthcare arena. I see differences with the families that I serve, and I recognize that I have to know how to pivot and shift and address the nuances and the differences from one family to the next, particularly when it comes to someone's ethnicity. And so for those of us who are providers, there's got to be something called cultural competence, cultural sensitivity, and it's not one size fits all. It is not, it's not one size fits all from family to family, even if they are the same. It's clearly not one size fits all. If you're going from, let's say, an Asian family to a Black family, or a Jewish family to a Black family. And that organizations and healthcare providers have got to pause for a moment and say, is this mode of service delivery, are the individuals I'm sending into this home, is the support group conversation I'm having with this group the right kind of conversation to really reach them and bring about some healing and some respite and some consolation for the journey that they're on. And I think that cultural competency really has only been at the forefront in discussions. I'm going to say the last, and I'm talking about being a priority, last 10 years, 15 years, if that.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah. I appreciate what you said about pausing, just stopping to pause, to really think about and really, again, as you said, every family is unique. Every situation is unique. So how can we pause and think before we act? You also talked about faith and how, within communities of color, specifically Black and Brown communities, our faith is a huge part of how we cope and live. So Heidi, I want to bring you in. Heidi, if you can share with us what your role as spiritual care coordinator, and then talk a little bit about that internal conflict that communities of color are experiencing while they're on, they have that when it comes to the role reversal.
I'd be happy to, Simone. But if it's okay, can I just piggyback on something I was just talking about?
Yeah, we are at this point, the entree is getting ready to come out. So I want to dig deep. Let's definitely go there.
The master facilitator here.
So one of the critical issues when we talk about healthcare providers and understanding communities of color, there is a huge barrier in that there is a huge mistrust of the medical system, where non-African American community members can go to a doctor and trust that the information that they're getting, they're like, yep, this is perfect. I understand everything. This is clear. When you look at the African American community and look at the experiences over 400 years, I do a presentation, I talk about from slavery to civil rights, how many times we've been used as guinea pigs and experiments. You talk about the Tuskegee experiment, you talk about Henrietta Lacks, and now you throw COVID into the mix, and the disparate treatment that we receive in communities of color, the impact, how we were grossly over represented in the numbers of those significantly impacted from COVID. And we're now significantly underrepresented in the numbers of those getting the vaccine, because there's that innate mistrust in some instances, but then there's also a lack of access. And so you layer all that in when it comes time to dealing with a critical illness. It's going to be a lot harder for that medical professional to get into that discussion and be received in a way that mom and daddy are actually going to listen to what this doctor has said. Culturally, just something really simple that we don't often take into account. When you go into the doctor's office, the doctor will walk in and say, "Hi, I'm Dr. Johnson. How you doing today, Simone?" What was that subtle shift? That medical has said, "You address me by my title, I address you by your first name."
Wow.
And when you look at an aging person, they're going back to the days when they were called boy, girl. We had to fight to get our title recognized, to be called Mr. Smith or Mr. Hill. And you gonna walk in the door and just address me by my first name? Extended the invitation to do that. And so as healthcare providers, those are just small nuances we don't always take into account, we don't think about, but it immediately puts up a barrier. And now my back is up and I'm not really hearing information that you're sharing with me. So that's just, I just wanted to weigh in on what Connie said.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. The barriers, the conversation around barriers is important. So, but I would love for you to share what you're about your role, and then another barrier, which is faith, you know, folks that are deeply rooted in faith, and how there's an internal conflict, you know, with that role reversal piece.
Absolutely. So I've been with Hospice of the Western Reserve as a spiritual care coordinator for 13 years. And a lot of people think I have a really difficult job because I'm dealing with people at the end of life. And I tell them that I have a gift to be able to walk with people on this sacred journey, that they invite us in. And I see Susan nodding her head. And I know, Michelle, if I could see you, I know you'd be nodding your head. They don't have to invite us in, but they allow us to companion them on this journey to talk about what it means as we're approaching the end of life. And one of the biggest barriers that we encounter, particularly in communities of color, because we have oftentimes a strong faith component, statistics bear out that we are twice as likely to talk to our clergy person about what our end of life wishes are as we are to talk to a medical professional. Twice. Now, that sounds horrific, but the reality is we don't really want to talk about end of life, period. But when we do finally talk about it, we'll talk to the pastor, we'll talk to the imam, we'll talk to the priest, then maybe we'll talk to the doctor. Part of it is this sense that if I don't talk about it, it won't happen. If I start to plan, if I start to put things in order, if I start to talk about dying, then I'm gonna die. Well, guess what? Even if you don't talk about it, statistics are 100%. You will die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but none of us get out of it alive. And so the question is, how do we look at life with the respect that at some point we are all going to get to the end of our journey? But do we get there with dignity? Do we get there with quality? Do we get there with understanding and having family members who are there with us? Or do we go kicking and screaming, fighting to the very end? I do have to put in a real quick personal disclaimer. Connie's been talking a lot about be the partner, not the parent. My parent is on the line. She's here with us tonight. Connie, I'm gonna get you for saying that.
Oops.
We have this running joke. She tells everybody I'm her mother. But it is that level of honoring our elders, respecting our elders. It is, you know, when we talk about our faith. That's the way I brought up. You know, as Connie said, that it's just scriptural. You know, honor your mother and your father all the days of your life. And so how do we frame that discussion and get them to talk about things that may be difficult for them to acknowledge? As Connie said, it's hard for us because we want to think about mom and daddy being with us forever.
Right.
So we really don't want to have the conversation. They're on to that. Mom and daddy don't want to put any more on you than you can bear. So we don't want to ask for help.
No, that's a great point. And, you know, when we talk about that respect for our elders, you know, specifically, you know, how that's so deeply ingrained within communities of color. You know, I think about one of my best friends, her grandmother was diagnosed with cancer recently. And we were talking about this conversation about role reversal. And, you know, I want to talk about, because, you know, we're the respect is important, but, you know, this information is amazing. People have the 6 steps, but when they go to get to that dinner table and they start that conversation, whether it's your grandmother, your aunt, your uncle, your parent, there are some folks, elders within our families that they are not going to have this they're going to shut it down.
Shut it down.
So Connie, what is your advice when someone, you know, after they listen to this program, you know, they go to their loved one, they have the dinner spread ready, and they start the conversation and they get shut down? what's your advice for the role reversal conversation with those challenging elders?
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's going to always be easy. And I'm not saying that at some point you may have to shut it down, because they will not. I have worked with a lot of families where the adult children have literally just thrown their hands up because they've tried the conversation. They've gone left, they've gone right, they've tried to circumvent everything, and mom or dad are just not having it. And so this is going to sound perhaps a little harsh, but what I've usually said to them is be as prepared as you can for when the crisis happens. We're trying to prep everyone to be prepared on the front end so that if something goes wrong, it's going to be difficult enough, but at least you know how to navigate it. And so I always give this example. I had a client and single child, one child, and she lived in California. And I think I may have told you all this, and she didn't want any help, and she fell, and my caregiver got her to Hillcrest, and they were going to send her home. And we called the daughter in California, and she said, give me the number to the hospital right now. And she called them and she said, don't discharge her. Do not discharge her. I'm on the next plane out. So she used that as an opportunity to intervene. She didn't want to do it that way. She did not want to do it that way, but she had herself prepared that the moment I can get a foothold in my mom's house, I'm driving the bus from here, because she was overall concerned about her mom's well-being, and she had been dreading that fall that occurred. And so there are going to be those families where they're just not, as we would say in the Black community, Big Mama is not having it. And she's not going to have the conversation. She's going to tell you, Jesus is going to take care of me.
Yeah.
Y'all will be all right. That's what she's going to say. And she may tell you, you know what? I've told so-and-so everything they need to know. So when I'm gone, just go to them. Right. Now, some families will do that. They will do that. But just like parents say, my mother used to always say, I know my kids. I know my children. We know our parents. And most of us know how hard we can push. We do. We do. And we know when it's time to back up and just say our prayers and hope for the best.
You know, and sometimes when we talk about a barrier or folks that are just, having folks that are not responsive to this conversation of role reversal, a part of this checklist is getting your siblings on the same page as well. Can you say a little bit more about some of the things that you've seen with siblings and them sort of supporting the caregiver or lack thereof? What advice or words do you have around that?
When it works well, it works well. In my almost 18 years, I see it more not working well than working well. And that's a sad commentary. That is a sad commentary. I was in the minority. There were 4 of us. Fortunately, we were all in the state of Ohio. 2 of us were in Cleveland. I had a brother in Columbus and a sister in Cincinnati. One of the things that I always say to people who don't live in town where the caregiver is, particularly if they're caregivers in town, limit your amount of comments and advice if you're not in the trenches every day. Just limit it. And try to figure out what you can do to support your siblings from a distance. It might be, I'm just sending the money. Yeah. It might be, you know what? I can order all the groceries online. Everything you can do online now. I've got that part. It might be if something goes wrong at mom's house, I can coordinate the repairs. And so I always say everybody has a role. It doesn't have to be the same role, but what we see which breaks sibling relationships so many times are the kids are spread out all over the country. 1 or 2 are left here carrying the heavy day-to-day load, whatever that might look like. And the ones from out of state zip in once or twice a year, stir the pot, and then get on a plane and leave. And so I just generally say to long distance siblings, you need to limit your comments when you come into town. And don't try to manage from a distance, and define what you can do. Yeah. And there are many things that a long distance caregiver can do. There really, really are. People have a tendency to think you're really only a caregiver if you're here. No, there's a whole lot that you can do from a distance.
And can I just add something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I want to give Heidi and Susan an opportunity to pop in on this siblings and the role of siblings, because this can get kind of crazy.
Yeah,
and it can, but there's one thing that we often fail to do as a caregiver, and that's ask for help.
I knew she was gonna say that.
We make the assumption
That they should just know.
No, mama, they should know what we need. They know daddy, they know that I need help. But when we don't ask for help, the perception of those out-of-town siblings or those corner siblings is they got a handle on it. They don't need anything. They haven't asked me for anything, so they're good.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you're seething. Ain't nobody helping. Nobody's coming over here.
Yeah.
And I will say to that caregiver, have you asked? Well, no, they should know. And so you get in that catch-22, and you do end up with those broken relationships, and you get that bitterness. And so don't be afraid to ask.
Don't be afraid to ask. That's awesome.
Great point,
Susan, what would you add?
I was going to say, so a couple comments. It's such a rich discussion. So I'm going to talk about my C words. We got the C word, cancer. Then we have control and communication. Those are some big ones. So I'm going to do the little control spiel. So when we were talking about when it's a difficult situation, or, you know, they're not listening or whatever, just kind of stepping back and realizing, you know, that cancer person or any diagnosis, you know, is diagnosed with cancer. They didn't ask for it. They can't fix it. They're feeling really out of control. Even the parents that you guys are talking about that are strong and they're the mom and they're, you know, they're not going to let you know that, but they're feeling really out of control. And so that's where some of this, I call it the messiness. So it's all this is messy. All this cancer stuff's messy. The caregiving stuff is messy. Expect the messy. That's what I say. That's going to be a constant.
Yeah.
But knowing that it could be a control thing. So when that person is saying, well, no way, you know, you told me to do that, I'm not going to do that, because that's giving them a sense of control. So we do some things, and we see a lot of that. We see a lot of control around maybe food. Food's an easy thing to control. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to eat that. You're not going to tell, you know. And so doing things to make it a win-win, where the caregiver says, hey, would you like this or would you like this? Cancer person gets to say, oh, I'd like this. The caregiver asked for two things that they want both of those equally, but it gave a sense of control to the person with cancer. And I'm talking about little things. It could be really little, just like what you want for dinner. So that doesn't have to be a power struggle. And so just, you know, kind of doing it just like small choices, and then giving that sense of control can really help some of those things from escalating. Because that's a very, very common thing. And the other piece is what you've all talked about is just always working on that communication, which is so difficult. So I'm a real big proponent of family meetings, like Simone saying, around the table, like, okay, we're given the update. This is where we're at medically. This is what's going on. And I'm talking like the main caregiver person now, right? It's going to say, this is, you know, this is what's going on. This is what's working well. I got this. This is what's not working well. I need help with this. It's like a football huddle, like trying to figure out like who's playing what position and what are we going to do to kind of include everybody. Because it just to check in, and it's hard in the beginning. It's really hard. All these new words are thrown at you, all of these decisions you need to make. What kind of chemo do I need? What is this? I got to go to this appointment, all these things out of your control. And then once you know, all right, okay, we're getting kind of into a new normal here. Let's figure this out. Okay, who are going to have what in what place? So, but it's hard. You got to do a lot of listening. It's going to get messy. You got to realize that main person is in the center. and they're feeling really out of control, and you want to be able to help them, to pour into them and help them. But yeah, those are just a few little things that tend to help.
Yeah, no, I love that. Those C words.
Yeah, all those C words.
Yeah.
Yes, no, that, and to be able to break it down from a practical perspective, as you said, Susan, you know, giving people control in some capacity is important. So being able to say, okay, we're having this meal or this meal, and something that you know is nourishing to their body. Because if they say, well, no, I want the yams and the collard greens and the greens, you know, no, if we know that we need to incorporate a healthier diet, what are two options that we can offer? But then they still have an opportunity to have control over what they're eating. But again, you're giving them the two of the healthiest options of the two. So that's just one.
They're good.
Right.
Who do you want to bring to the appointment with you? They might not want to bring anyone. Who do you want? Do you want,
yes,
do you want so-and-so or so-and-so?
Yep.
All you want is someone to go to that appointment with them. So,
Right.
you know, those kinds of things can be helpful.
And the communication piece where you're sitting down at the table. I mean, again, we talked about it again. Table talk is one of those things that happens anyway. It happens anyway. Or if you're on the phone with your siblings, you know, what questions can you be bringing up? I think, you know, Connie, I've heard you say before, make sure, you know, because parents will say one thing to one person and another thing to the next person. So how are you as siblings or as caregiver, you know, as loved ones, the family members, how are you on the same page in terms of what information needs to be shared?
And I've seen that where parents will tell, you know, the son something and then tell the daughter something, and then they compare notes and they're like, Dad didn't say that, you know, and parents know their children and they know which ones. Well, I know if I tell Johnny I want this chocolate cake, he's going to be like, Ma, you can have whatever you want. But if I tell Susie I want this chocolate cake, she's going to say, absolutely not. The doctor said. And so they're almost like back to role reversal. It's almost like kids as they age, and if they're dealing with cancer or any kind of chronic illness, they just want the answer to be yes. So they know which kids they can go to get what they want to get. And so sometimes, again, as adult children, we want to try to figure out how we can, for their benefit, how we can outmaneuver them.
Exactly.
And one of the things that we try to talk to elders about is putting our advanced directives in place. And that is a really difficult conversation, but it's one of those necessary conversations, because when you have 6 children, you have 6 opinions about what mama wants. They will say all day long, oh no, we get along really well. We understand, we know everything. We all on the same page. Until it comes down to what color dress, what color flowers, what funeral home are we using, what are we gonna do? And all those important decisions now are leading to fuss and fight between the 6. And so the way to broach that subject is to say, you know, Mom, we want to make sure that we're honoring everything that you want, so that we're not left guessing and it doesn't create a hardship. And one of the things that I will tell people is this is the greatest gift you can give your children. And I got to put in a shameless plug. We have a booklet, Courage and Conversation. It's available online for download, PDF. It walks you through the steps of picking which person you want to be your power of attorney for healthcare, because it's not necessarily the oldest child. It's not necessarily the youngest child. It's not necessarily the son or the daughter. And it just kind of helps you step through. It may not be any of your kids. It may be your sibling. So, but having everybody know, have it in writing. You know, a lot of times people go, well, it's in my will. They'll know. No, nobody's going to know what's in your will until long after you're gone, because we can't get it out the safe deposit box because we don't have the keys because you didn't leave information. So if you want wishes honored, if there's things that you want before you get to the point where you can't speak for yourself, having it written down is the greatest gift you give to family. And perhaps to start that conversation, you go, hey, Mom, you know what I did last week? I filled out my power of attorney for healthcare and my living will. And this is why I did it. What do you think about us doing yours?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can walk them through the process and say, you know, it was really easy. I only needed a notary or I needed 2 witnesses. It wasn't something I had to pay for, you know, take away all the reasons why I don't want to do this right now.
That's great. Heidi, you just answered 2 of my questions that I was about to ask.
So
the first question was going to be, do you have any tools or resources that you would offer? And then the second question was going to be for Connie, actually, what one document would you recommend people to start with? Because I know there's a lot of helpful information that we've shared here. And if you could just say, you know, if folks are saying, I want to get started right after this conversation, or even, you know, would you say there's one piece of one document that they should sort of start with? And while we're giving Connie a moment, I want to also just remind folks, if you have questions, please add them in the chat. I have one more question to close out the panel discussion. We'll stop recording and encourage folks to come off of mute if they want to ask their questions that way. Or again, you can place your question in the chat box. But Connie, any suggestions on, would you say there's one piece to kind of start this whole process?
Well, you know what, Heidi kind of stole mine. And I'm not just saying that because one of the, and Susan is nodding her head too.
We use that one too.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Really. And so I think it's okay because when I talk to people about their advanced directives, number one, I'm still going to say in the African-American community, I'm going to say greater than 50% don't have them in place. Mm-hmm. Don't
greater
even,
than what percent, Connie?
Over 50%. Heidi, do you know? Oh,
I don't have the number, but I will tell you, if I'm at a health fair and people see hospice, they want to run and go the other way because it's like the last conversation they want to have.
Wow.
But I will stop them and say, wait, I got a question for you. Do you have your durable power of attorney for healthcare and your living will? And they'll stop and they'll go, well, I don't know. I said, then no, you don't have it. Then you would know. You wouldn't have to think about it. And I can broach the conversation from that point of, this is why you need to have these documents. This is what speaks for you when you can't speak for yourself. And people misunderstand a healthcare power of attorney versus a financial power of attorney.
Right.
And so we do a great disservice by not explaining to people what these documents are and what they allow people to do. A healthcare power of attorney means nothing as long as you are able to talk for yourself. It's a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But people think, oh, well, they're going to tell my doctor what medicine I can take, or they're going to change this, that, and the other. Legally, it does nothing until you cannot speak for yourself. So, but I'm sorry, Connie. You did well, because those are the conversations that I end up having with adult children now. So particularly if, and what I see a lot with me, other than some other chronic diseases or even cancer diagnosis, is the prevalence of memory loss. Mm-hmm. And so I have a couple of clients now who have memory loss and a cancer diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine those families are swimming. Mm-hmm. But particularly when I'm dealing with families where there's memory loss, some form of dementia, I hone in on just what Heidi said, because that is when a healthcare power of attorney, because if that senior has been deemed incompetent or not able to make decisions in their best interest, that's when that daughter or son or spouse can execute and make decisions for them. And so many times that's not in place. And then you have the battle, and then you're in court, and then the court is trying to make a decision or appoint a guardian, and it just gets messy. When Susan was talking about that, just messy stuff, it gets messy. And so that probably, as I'm talking, as I'm thinking about what I run into, it is what Heidi said. It means nothing if mom and dad are fine and competent, but what happens if you get a call and dad was in an accident and he's in a coma and the doctor wants to make a decision and wants to know who's going to make this decision, or says we should pull him off of life support. And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but we know life happens. Yeah. And it's comforting to know that as a family, you've made those decisions. I say to people all the time, make the decisions, make copies, put it in your drawer, and live your life. Live your life.
but know how to access it should you need it.
That's great. That's great. I just think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, one of the difficulties is when we don't put these documents in place, when we don't put our wishes down in writing, we end up with situations that we never would have wanted. And as people approach the end of life, they end up getting care that they never would have wanted. They end up on life support. They end up with feeding tubes. They end up with all these things that they never would have wanted. But because there's nothing in writing, the healthcare professionals are going to do everything possible.
That's right.
And so people wake up trying to figure out, why do I have this tube down my throat? Why do I have these lines going into me? This isn't what I wanted. But if you've got two siblings and you told one, this is what I do or don't want, but you didn't tell the other, the doctors are going to err on the side of caution and do everything possible. And that's why I said you give your loved ones a gift by writing down these things, by putting your living will in place, by putting your durable power of attorney for healthcare in place, by having these difficult conversations. Because not only are you saving your children from having to battle amongst themselves, you're saving yourself from having things done to you that are contrary to what you would want.
Yeah.
Because you didn't put it somewhere where someone could access it so that the healthcare professionals would know what Simone wants if this ever were to happen, if we get that phone call.
And even when you think about cancer, and I'm thinking about what you all deal with and what we all find ourselves dealing with, you know, I've had clients that they get to a place where they say, that's it. I'm not doing any more treatments.
Yeah.
I'm tired. And I've seen where children are still trying to say to their parents, well, you know what, but the doctor said we can do this other round. And so even knowing how to respect that as adult children, and allowing your parents that control over their lives, as Susan talked about, to say, I'm not doing another round of chemo. I'm choosing to live out my days the way I choose to live out my days.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen where the children, because we don't want to lose mommy and daddy.
Right.
I keep saying that we don't want to lose them. And so we're like, fight to the finish. And they're like, I don't want to fight to the finish. I want to live.
Yeah.
It's of a
We want to
quality.
have the quality of life.
A quality
Exactly.
of life.
Yeah.
For however long I might have left.
No, I appreciate you for sharing that. And I just, you know, this has been such an amazing conversation for caregivers. There are a lot of layers to being a caregiver, and hopefully people got some really helpful information in terms of really, you know, preparing documents and, you know, tips on starting the conversation for their aging loved one that is dealing with cancer. Again, whether it's your spouse, your parent, your cousin, whoever that loved one is, you know, hopefully, again, this information has been helpful, you know, and so I just want to round out with the last few questions before we close the panel discussion and open up for questions. I want to share a quote. It's a quote that we used at the Gathering Place. As you all know, we're a cancer support center at the Gathering Place, and everything that we do is to help folks cope with cancer. So I want to read this quote. It says, "Services provided by the Gathering Place are a basic human need to someone on the cancer journey." Susan, can you chime in a bit here and just talk about the services that are available at the Gathering Place? You talked a lot about the control piece, the communication piece. What do we offer at the Gathering Place for folks that are caring for someone with cancer and for those that are dealing with cancer?
Sure. So the first thing that comes to mind, and it kind of is going back to what Heidi said about her job, is we bear witness to these really hard, we sit with people and we listen and we create a really safe space to talk about really hard things. And I don't feel like my job is hard. It can be hard. I mean, we hear a lot of hard things, but it's a privilege because people are coming to you already open and already vulnerable and saying, here, this is the real me. This is what's going on. So that's the big philosophical overview, at least how I look at my job. But you can use the Gathering Place as little or as much as you need. So at any stage on the cancer journey. So it can be at time of diagnosis, That could be as simple as a call or a consult with our medical librarian, Eileen Cohen, saying like, I don't understand what these words mean. Can you explain this test to me? Can you tell me what questions I should be asking my doctor? You know, that's one individual service we provide. We provide a lot of different individual services, including individual support. And then we do a lot of things in groups. So groups of people, like tonight, programs, things that educate you, things that are supportive, that you're going to meet other people in the same boat, other people that have your type of cancer, other people that love somebody that has cancer. So all sorts of things. I mean, and it changes every 3 months. We do another calendar. We're getting ready to do another one that we've got a whole bunch of different topics that we hope are timely, that we help some small way on that cancer journey, and that are just, I kind of always think of it as like a basket, like a net, and you've got your doctors and you have your medical team and you have all your medical stuff. But when you come to the gathering place, you get all these other pieces that just kind of help support you and your family. But I could do the whole thing on everything that we do, so I'm not gonna. But everything and every age of family. So from little kids all the way up to 100 plus, we serve. So
that's awesome. Thank you, Susan. And before we close the panel discussion, Connie and Heidi, I want to ask you a question. Connie, I know you've been a caregiver before. And Heidi, I don't know if you've been a caregiver, but I know you've worked with caregivers. What advice would you give yourself when you were a caregiver, looking back now, knowing the information that you have now? What one piece of advice would you give yourself during the midst of the most chaotic moments of your caregiver experience? If you could just share one piece, and Heidi, if you have a story that you'd like to share of something you've seen, you can do that as well.
I'll jump in first, Heidi. Mine would probably be, to have taken more time just to sit with my mom. I think as a caregiver, there's always the stuff that you need to do. So, I go over there and, in your mind, I got to do this, 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 and she's there and you're doing things for her. And my mom had memory loss. And I think I spent a lot of time with her, but as I look back, I think what I would tell caregivers is it's okay if you don't mop the kitchen floor. It really is. It really is. Or if you don't get that extra load of laundry in. It's okay to sit with your loved one who's on the cancer journey or whatever their journey is, and to talk if they're still having conversation, to hold their hand, to look through a picture book, to make new memories together. And so that's, I think we as caregivers, and I'll say there's always something to do. Another phone call to make, something to do at the house, help them in the shower, go to the grocery store. And I think I would just say, all that stuff's gonna be there. And take that time. I would take and try to, it's easy as a caregiver to look at the bad side of caregiving.
Yeah.
And not the rewarding and the richness that can come with the journey. I mean, there are days when I look back and I said, because my sister and I tag teamed for a long time with my mom. We had the weekends, we had caregivers during the week, but we had every Saturday and Sunday for years. And so when my mom was gone, I said to my husband, I got up the first Saturday morning and I was just like, I don't know what to do with myself, because my weekends were always get up, go to mom's house. And that's where I was all day until the night lady came. And so experience the journey and the richness in it with that person.
Yeah.
It's not about the things that need to be done all the time, but pause and experience the richness of the journey of caregiving.
That's powerful. Heidi, what would be your advice to yourself during your caregiver journey, or advice that you've sort of given to someone that you've worked with?
Well, both. It's the same advice, and it's something very simple. Self-care is not selfish.
Mm.
And I tell the caregivers that I work with, you are only as good to your loved one as you are to yourself. And I use the example of, if you've ever been on an airplane, what instructions that the pilot gives. In case of loss of cabin pressure, the oxygen mask will drop down. Put your oxygen mask on first, and then reach over to help someone else. Because when you can't breathe, you can't help somebody else.
Amen.
That was awesome,
That was
ladies.
good,
I think
Heidi.
that was the dessert. The table is, we're sitting back at this point. The meal was awesome. Ladies, thank you so much. Connie, you know how I adore you. We appreciate you so much for joining us today and sharing those 6 amazing steps to sort of helping folks have this really truly challenging conversation. It can be challenging. So thank you for your presentation. Heidi, we appreciate you for all of your knowledge. We will make sure that folks get a link to the document that you had talked about. So we'll make sure that folks have that information. Susan, thank you. Obviously, my colleague, we appreciate all the wisdom that you've shared and all the work that you do at the Gathering Place to support not only those that are going through cancer, but again, of course, caregivers. So I'm going to stop recording, and I am going to open up